And welcome to our preview for Friday, August the 23rd. Merv, did you have a good Thursday?
I did. How about you?
It was great. I thought my
Winners everywhere.
I thought my race calls were excellent.
Yeah.
I thought your picks were all
Paddock picks were on point.
on point, and everybody's happy. So, but thrilled to be with you. Of course, we're recording in advance. We're trying to be funny. As we mentioned in last night's video, but I don't want to presume that people are watching last night's video who are watching tonight. Some people might just play us Fridays, maybe just Saturdays, whatever. The rails out in their furthest out setting now. The first week they were 0 for the inner and 70 feet out for the outer. And second week it was 20 and 90. This week I believe it's 40 and 110. So everything out just a little bit. So turns will be a teensy bit wider. I feel like it's not that big of a difference, but it actually is a pretty significant difference.
Yeah, and that's as far as they'll go, right? Because they'll go back to
0 for Virginia Derby, which, by the way, if you're watching this on Friday, is just 8 days away now.
Right? Exciting.
Yeah, $250,000 Grade 3. Have you ever? Oh, you worked at Churchill, so you've been in the paddock for big races.
I have, but it's been a minute.
That's a good call. Race number 1, Merv. Kicking off, we got a couple of smaller fields to kick off, and by smaller for us that means 7 or 8.
Right.
Or, I think we've got a few 6s here, but the second half of Friday's card is pretty bonkers.
Yeah.
A lot of big fields. So if you're looking for good opportunities, there certainly could be one. We do start out with an entry in here in this race for DARS Incorporated, who have been very hot.
4 wins so far,
Yeah.
leading the owner standings. I think there's one other owner that has 2 wins.
Okay.
Everybody else has 1.
Well, yeah, DARS and Brendan Walsh, they have Rock on Kitten and Valdobo. Rock on Kitten, a $50,000 claim they made at Churchill. The DARS folks are from here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I almost wonder if they were kind of loading up and pointing for this meet, and maybe now they're seeing the benefits of that.
Yeah, I thought that Rock on Kitten looked very strong. Good speed figures, just the best in here. But he's been off for 2 months, so that was a bit of a knock against him.
Yeah.
And just 1 point on those Churchill shippers. So they were red hot opening weekend, 6 wins.
Yeah.
And then last weekend, none. 0 wins for Kentucky shippers. So
That's
just an
Kevin
interesting
Kirstein's
stat.
fault.
Rock on Kitten's been running against big fields too,
Yeah.
I've noticed. So this will be the shortest field he's run against.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If
Holy
you
moly.
look at the his entry mate, Valdobo.
Valdobo, yes.
Yeah, we have seen 2 shippers come in from Europe
Yeah.
to win here at first asking.
Yeah, and the first 3 races of this horse's career were, mile, 7/8 mile, and were decent efforts. So a third, a fourth, and a third, and was 4th last time out. So has run well overseas. Trevor McCarthy sees fit to, well, he's named on both of them. So possible that one or the other. I mean, Valdobo they've actually both were working at Churchill just as much as 4 or 5 days ago. But there's been a lot of vans in and out of Colonial Downs so far this meet.
Definitely. My top pick was Money in the Bank here.
Okay.
He was my top pick last
Yeah,
time.
I
I'm going to
remember
go
that.
back to him. That's a theme with me.
He had a bad start his first start, and he made such a good late run. Kind of did the same thing last time.
Again, yeah. So I made a note in here. If he can get a better break, he'd sure benefit. But even with a bad break, he does get more distance to kind of correct that mistake if it happens again.
Yeah, I mean, you get a bad break in a turf sprint.
You've only got so much time to fix it.
Well, because everybody's gunning.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, maybe you do have to use up a little bit more early, but you can kind of get yourself into position, I think, a little bit easier and a little less taxing. Yeah, I think people are going to bet that horse again for sure. I saw Glen Hill Farm with one in here, a Northwestern, who got thumped in a couple of starts, and they're going to drop this one to the tag. But that was last year at Del Mar and Santa Anita.
Yeah, 9 months on the shelf. He was well meant, well bet in his debut.
Look who beat him the second time.
Yeah, I circled that one, Coliseum. Derby winner for some early on in the season.
The fastest horse ever to run. But, Medaglia d'Oros, it's certainly a well-bred horse, but gelded, and so not part of their breeding plans, which is something they're obviously a big part of. Mutashiba, the 6 horse, we talked about Speed App on yesterday's show. Speed App beat this horse, but Mutashiba ran a pretty good one that day. At a price, right?
He did. He was one of your price plays that day too, wasn't he?
I don't think so. No.
Maybe you just pointed it out on the show that you liked him, and
Okay.
I just remembered it.
Yeah.
Just take the credit, right? That was a good race, and we'll see. Speed Up came back on Thursday to run, so we'll see how he does. That might give us a clue in here. I just thought it was interesting. They waited until 5 to get him started on the races, and now this will be his 3rd start in 5 weeks. So they're just going to keep going with them.
Talaga Bay, you made 7-2 on the line, coming off a 2nd place finish for connections that are pretty low percentage. The trainer Archibald Kingsley 0 for 27 in 2019, but on turf over the last few years is 13% from 115 starts. So obviously the barn not going well right now, but not like a hopeless barn. I mean, a barn that can certainly win races. Maiden to maiden claimer is 14%. I remember this horse. This horse ran in the first race of opening day at Monmouth Park that I called.
Wow.
Then random, and actually I think led. Oh no, that was the next race. But yeah, so I definitely have a pat. I've called this horse 3 times.
All 3 of those?
Yeah, it kind of has maroon and blackish silks, if I remember correctly. Or, sorry, garnet and black.
Well, I thought he would take money in here dropping out of maiden special. We talked on yesterday's show about dropping from a Virginia restricted maiden special to a maiden claimer. Is that really a drop? I think in this case it is. Yeah. And I did like that he was well clear of second. He was kind of thumped by the winner, but also left the rest of the field in his wake.
Yeah, I don't think Talaga Bay is going to take as much money though, because I do think the entry and Money in the Bank, as you put, are going to take serious amounts of dough. But we shall see. Who do you got in the opener, Merv?
I went 4 entry, and then I just threw the 5 Northwestern in there because I thought he's a wild card. You got to include him in your bets. You can't just toss him.
The second race is the smallest field on the card, a field of 6 going 5.5 furlongs. It kicks off the early pick 4, and you made favoritism in here, the number 1, right?
And the 1,
Calamity Jane,
Calamity Jane. She's just been dropping pretty aggressively. If you just look back at a couple races, she was running in much tougher races at Churchill, and not altogether bad races. She was closing ground in those Churchill races. In 1, she was beaten less than 2 lengths in there. Yeah. Kind of a bad effort last time, but also maybe going a little bit further than she's comfortable with. She drops back to 5.5 in here. So I thought for those reasons she would take money in here.
2's taking a pretty big class drop as well. But if you look 3 back, the horse was claimed for 12.5, so they really jumped it up in class. Now, it's not like they're dropping they're just going back to reality, and even still is higher than what they paid for the horse.
Yeah. What did you think about her getting back on the turf, though?
Yeah, that's the question. Is 0 for 13 on the grass, but does have a couple runner-ups and a couple thirds, and I thought not the craziest of long shots. Dorothy from Dublin, the kind of horse I love, just an honest, seems to run almost every time. I mean, you look up and down the PPs. There's 1 5th place finish, and that was against optional 32, but it was the last grass start. But it was 35-1 that day, and made a little bit of a bid after having to steady against Leslie Mowing this time. Who Leslie's off to a bit of a cold start. He's certainly a rider with ability. I mean, he comes from I should say comes from my neck of the woods. He rode up in the Northwest for a lot of years and was a perennial leading guy at Emerald and at Portland for a few years. So I mean, I even though he's not hitting a high percentage, I don't have a ton of doubt on him as a rider.
No, I kind of spotted that turf race as well. Look how fast they went early. She had a lot to run into, but she was making up ground, beating less than 5 lengths in there. And the winner came back to win. I also thought for a 5.5 furlong race, wasn't a ton of speed in here, and I thought maybe Dorothy from Dublin kind of inherits that early lead in here. Maybe was the best speed. I saw her entered on Thursday. I assume she's going to scratch out of there, come back in here. I think that might be a good move.
The 5 drops a little bit too. Was at the 16,000 non-winner of 2 level when it won last. And so to me, this just seems like putting the horse kind of back in the right spot.
Yeah, I think so. I think she was just a little overmatched last time. Probably fits better in here because that was a pretty good race. Shipper Magician looked very good winning that. And then also, I thought she would benefit from cutting back in distance as well. Looked like she was losing a little bit of ground late in that race.
This is the 6 you're talking about.
Yep, Jumpin' Nancy.
For Susan Cooney. Your picks for race 2, Merv?
I went with the 4, 6, 1.
Third race, I have one of my price plays in here, and it's a non-winner of 2 $16,000 event, a mile and a 16th on the inner turf. So starting a little bit further up the home stretch. We haven't had a ton of these, but we've had, I want to say 3 or so, but we've certainly seen a lot more of the flat mile.
Yeah, agreed.
Where do you start in here?
Yeah, tough race in here. I landed on the 5, Mama D. I think this is the first time we've seen a Linda Rice trainee come in. Ships down from Saratoga. I feel like I've used the single a few times, and it's only worked out maybe once for me so far. I'm always very seduced by these Saratoga shippers coming in here, and I think only 1 winner so far from Saratoga. But I've fallen for it again. She's been a little bit of a money burner last couple starts, but I thought dropping in class, I thought she just was a good fit.
Yeah, I feel like these Linda horses, even at Saratoga, like she wins at such a high percentage, but they're often really low odds, and it seems like they win by a pile or lose by a pile, and so it's going to be really interesting to see what this one can do. It is an interesting move. Karamanos gets on board, but I don't know. To me, I'd rather get beat by that kind at a short price, but it's very possible it could be. I did think there was some interesting alternatives in here. I mentioned the 4 Pass It On was my price play 8-1 on the morning line. Horse has some speed. Speed has not been the place to be going a mile and a 16th, but they didn't go all that fast last time, and it was a 25,000 on 2, so drops in class a little bit, but.
So that was actually the fastest half-mile split of 7 races that day on the
Oh,
inner.
I was going to say, because compared to some of the other races at the mile, it wasn't all that fast, but it was contentious. It was just right up alongside the rival, and to me, there was an excuse that this horse got passed.
Because I was thinking he might get a softer pace in here, right? Just if he was pressed last time and faded only just at the end, maybe if she kind of got out there on an easier lead. I didn't see a lot of horses that looked like they wanted to go with her.
I feel like the 2, has a little bit of speed, but there's not. I don't think any of the main contenders do. It seems like everybody, but it seems like those off the pace types, that's been the profile. So it makes me want, because as a handicapper, I'm geared towards speed. I think a lot of us are here in the States, and there comes a point where, is the track going to change and things are going to get back to normal in terms of that, or are we just butting our head again trying to beat the bias when that's a hard thing to do sometimes? I don't know. I just thought there was a couple of interesting little runners in here. I didn't care for the 8 or the 9 all that much. They're kind of both those mid-price long shots. I thought you could make more of a case for the 9 than the 8.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought I put value play next to the 9. That trainer won with the $150 winner last weekend. And this is just another one that ships in from Florida. I've been saying Florida had a hot weekend. They won 3 on Friday, 4 over the whole weekend. And I can't discount Michael Sanchez in any of these races.
Yeah, I thought the 6 was a little interesting too. Just still very lightly raced and broke the maiden second time out, and his run not great both times against winners, but wasn't embarrassed. Was beaten 4.5 and then 6.5, and so I just thought with a pretty strong barn, Tim Woodley's 23% on the year guy, a positive ROI in basically every category on my PP, and Daniel Centeno, who we know got off to a very, very fast start. We haven't seen him here on a daily basis. A lot of the riders, we'll see, because especially the Thursday and Fridays, because their particular cards might not be running, or they run during the day. The speed down here for the afternoon.
4 wins in one day. Last time I saw him here. Did you like the 7 at all?
No, hated it.
I just thought if I could make a case if I drew a line through her last race, which was just seemed pretty bad, but 2 back, I thought that race was very okay.
Let me rephrase. I don't like that horse on the win end.
No, but to use underneath, I know 1 for 28 is not your angle.
No, it's not. But price, right? If in races like this, to me, where there's not. Mama D's a pretty clear favorite, but I think there's a lot of muddledness around who's going to be second, third, and fourth choice. And if one of them gets forgotten, and maybe you do love Mama D, then you put the forgotten one in for the exacta. But your picks for race 3, Merv?
I went 5, 4, 7.
Race number 4, Maiden Claimers, going back to the outer turf course, and I had a little bit of a long shot I liked in here as well, but. Big fields on this day as a whole, and this is one of them. 13 horses set to roll.
This is a fun race. I liked some of the older horses in here actually. I looked all the way to the outside. Colonial Bay, 6-year-old maiden.
Not all the way, buddy. We got one more. There you go.
Oh, Lenshin. Oh, thanks.
Who showed speed?
Didn't
to
use
be
that
fair.
one.
To be fair.
The Colonial Bay, second at the $25,000 level. It's been 6 weeks, but second off a longer layoff. It hadn't started since December before then.
Yeah, low percentage barn, which always gives me hesitancy to go for at a short price, and so that was why I was kind of looking elsewhere. I think Risk Reversal, is going to get a lot of attention just because of the speed factor. At least used to have speed. It's one of those ones who was gone for over 2 years, came back and didn't quite have the same early lick, but I think that his best races make him a contender in here.
Yeah, I thought so too. He was my second pick, and. Yeah, I just thought that race last time out was a good race. We'll see, because Money in the Bank is running, was it earlier today?
Earlier, yeah.
So
we're looking at a lot of races. They do run together a little bit in terms of, it's funny, you get to each of them and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this one. Yeah. What about the 3? I Have What It Takes, who was second for maiden 16 at Mountaineer last time, but it was the first time on the grass, and it was a brutally wide trip, and ran a decent second at a price.
Yeah, well, we saw a couple West Virginia shippers win at good prices last weekend. I didn't use them in here. My third pick I went for the 9 High Rider. And really, when I was making the line for this race, I thought there was 3 horses that were going to take money. The 12, the 8, and the 9.
Yeah.
And then I kind of had to look back a ways to say, okay, well, who else is going to take money? I thought maybe the 6 leading man would take a little bit of money.
That was one of my, I was looking at the 3 and the 6 as my, try to beat those 3 favorites.
But he was 47 to 1 last time.
Yeah. I mean, but, I don't know, there's a little bit of a drop. First time on grass, it seemed like at least had some early interest. And again, you know, when we're talking about these cheap maiden races, you kind of got to just kind of look for whatever you can get, right? But
so if you don't like those 3 favorites in here, I think there's plenty of
well, and I don't. So I mean, this would be a leg where I'd try to find a handful. Either I would just stick with the 3 and the 6, or the 2 that I like the most, or try to find 1 or 2 other ones and make this my leg that is going to blow up my ticket, because I really didn't care for any of those top 3 choices at all.
Yeah. Did you like that far outside horse, the one that showed a little bit of speed?
I mean, speed is all, but I mean, you know, that was a pretty big fade job, right? I mean, just
it was.
Anybody can be fast for a quarter of a mile. I want to see at least go to the half, which they did. I mean, the horse was, the time they turned for home was only over 3. The thing is, sometimes those big margin defeats, they get inflated because the rider knows they're done, and so they're just going to wrap up. And so, I mean, I feel like there's worse ways to go in here.
Yeah.
But your picks for the 4th, Merv?
I went with the old guys, 12, 8, 9.
The 5th race on the card begins the 12% takeout pick 5, a popular wager, and it's a $5,000 non-winners of the years. And I feel like these are the races we've been seeing the bonkers results in. Like, we've had a few of the, you know, this was the Tito tonight condition or similar.
Who comes up later tonight?
Yeah, who comes up? I believe me, I saw that name and I go, oh man, Tito. I just remember that first night. I'm going, is that horse pulling away? Tito tonight?
That's an interesting race too.
Well, we've seen so many of the horses come back from it.
Right.
They haven't run much, but these. To me, it's always important to read where these horses have been going, because sometimes, you know, a horse might be last time out for 5, now in for 5 numbers a year. That's a big drop to me. These races are usually kind of the bottom.
Yeah.
So, where did you start out in here?
I went with 3 horses that actually all exit the same race. They're all raced against each other 2 back.
Okay.
So War Stroll, Not a Chance, and the Zip Zip Man.
The 12-5 on July 6th at Laurel you're talking about.
Yeah. War Stroll actually got the best of them that day, but just by a nose over Not a Chance. And the Zip Zip Man was only just a couple of lengths back. And then actually the Zip Zip Man and Not a Chance ran against each other last time. Neither one, they were 5th and 6th, but only just like a length or 2 separated them there. I gave War Stroll the edge because I just thought that kind of on the drop from 16 to conditioned 5, and I just thought with Daniel Centeno in the irons, and I also thought it was interesting. Look, Toledo rode War Stroll last time, and now jumps onto Not a Chance.
Yeah, there's a lot of droppers in this race. Sometimes these non-winners of the years, they have the same cast of characters in it, and there's a lot of horses coming out of $10,000 or $16,000 races in Laurel. Janny Dancer, who is coming out of a race here at Colonial just last weekend, made kind of a nice move, and at the top of the stretch, I thought was not going to win because they were way behind the leader, but was into position to hit the board and then kind of faded late. But it was first start off of a big multi-year
2
layoff.
years,
and so for the fact that the horse made a move into the race, I thought that was at least something worth meriting, and going to be interesting to see if that horse can come back. But I had one of my price plays in here with Crimson Spade, just a total speed angle. Is a very quick sprinting type. I love speed drawn toward the outside. It's one of my favorite things, and I just thought that if speed is okay, that one might be a big potential price to go up and at least give you a run for your money. But I agree that those horses coming out of those similar races, they're all, from speed figure standpoints, class standpoints, they're a little ways ahead of a lot of these ones. The 2 horses on the rail have both been getting crushed at these levels.
Yeah, I did like Janny Dancer a little bit for all the same reasons that you mentioned. I was wondering what kind of price I was going to get on her.
Because the speed figure is low for that race.
It is, and it's, you know, a conditioned 5 could be tougher than a non-winners of 2, 10. But second start off a 2-year layoff, I figured has every right to improve.
I feel like it is a jump in class, just because of these horses' presence. Because these are $10,000 types, not necessarily 5,000. We're running for big purses here. I mean, the purse is 20 grand. So, if they win and get claimed, they're taking home 17,000. So it's a worthwhile drop.
What about the 4 in here making his third start?
You know what? He sat such a good trip the first start, and then kind of made a good move last time. But the first start, to me, the Tito Tonight race, like he was in kind of a good spot early on. Was fourth, just kind of cruising, and didn't do any capitalization on it at all. And so I don't know. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, that
I kind of looked away too, but I just thought interesting. I think this will be the first 3-time starter here at the meet.
There's going to be another one here in another couple races, because I know I saw a couple of them on Friday night. Your picks for race 5, Merv?
I went 7, 8, 3.
We are sticking on the outer turf, sprinting in the 6th race on the card. It's a $20,000 maiden event, and it's another of these very, very big fields, 11 horses. I kind of was, Ness has one toward the outside I think is going to get a fair bit of attention in Playland. I was kind of most interested in the 3 and the 4. I think the 1 is going to get a lot of attention too.
Yeah, I think the 1 is going to be your betting favorite, at least, just off the strength of that second place finish in the Tough 25 at Laurel. And she beat one of your 3 in there as well by about 5 lengths. Gets Centeno in the arms. I kind of gave a leg up to horses like that since he's got 4 wins already. Yeah. And I liked the way that she ran that race, right? She was always involved right from the start.
Yeah, the reason I liked the 3 was they're coming out of the same race, but the 3 got off to a slow start and spotted a lot of lengths and kind of was at least inching up into it. And so to me, lesson learned, kind of breaks in a similar spot in mid-pack, so hopefully just kind of has a little bit more of a feel of what is actually going on.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so the 4 horse, Anthony Pecoraro, is a very, very solid barn, and this horse was part of an entry, so without going back and looking who it was with, it's hard to know if they were betting this horse early because of this horse or because the entry made, because this one did no running. But again, it's from a very, very good barn. That was a maiden special at Delaware. Open maiden specials at Delaware are not soft races by any means, and so to me it looks like an interesting class drop, and I thought kind of a worthy play in here.
Yeah, but didn't really lose ground throughout the race. So I kind of looked at that and thought this was definitely a value
Gets
play.
Lasix for the first time. I mean, there's a few different reasons to think this one. I don't want to ever bash your morning line, Merv. Who loves you more than I think that horse is going off less than 8-1.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
Just off the connections But yeah,
it's not a very impressive running line if you're.
No, it's a I know. But Michael Sanchez, who's hot here, Pecoraro, that's my thought. So we'll see. We'll bet a one of our bottles of water that say "Watch me sip" or "Watch me nay nay."
You're on. I did think this 10 Playland was going to take some money though.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Where's that? Yeah. For, Jamie Ness, I feel like anything he's sending out right now is going to, because he's just off to such a quick start here, and it's first time Lasix. It's Trevor McCarthy showing up. Jamie's pretty good with first time on grass, which this horse is getting. I thought there was a few reasons. Verrazano, if I'm not a breeding guy, but the name sticks out a little bit more than some of the other sires, like Dun Talking and Guilt Trip and Competitive Edge. The Big Beast and others.
Yeah, Verrazano did fine on the turf, right? They shipped him overseas. He ran in a few races over there and did okay.
That was my Derby pick that year. Oh,
might have gone that way too.
I'm horrible in the Derby. I was for my life in the Derby. I picked Chrome and Pharaoh back to back, which chalk.
The
Derby's been chalk. Yeah, but I started to think, okay, at least I'm not getting killed in this bet, and then I've just tried to get cute so many years with these 12, 13, 14 to 1 shots that just never run a jump.
How many favorites in a row have won that race?
6. Well, since they went to the point system.
Yeah.
It's been favorites every year. What about the outside runner, Into Hare, who I thought the comment was interesting, no front shoes, but was running the maiden special at Laurel, didn't do much running, but I don't know. I still
didn't lose ground throughout the race. I kind of looked for that angle, right? Okay, were they lost by a bunch, but were they back by a bunch at the very first point of call? This one was. Yeah,
just the thing is at least it appears there's just almost nobody with early gas except for that one horse, and so if that horse can get out clear, it could be tough sailing for them. Your picks for the 6th, Merv?
I went 1, 4, 10.
7th race on the card is on the inner turf, but we're going a mile. But we've had a lot of these mile races, and we've talked quite a bit about them. I kind of mentioned to watch how Speed does early because I kind of like the Susan Cooney horse in here that's a big price in Izzy's Mark just because finally broke through and got the maiden win last time at Mountaineer, but it's been showing a fair bit of speed, and to me it just didn't look like there was much early foot at all in this race. And it's a big field. I guess the 11 Debbie's Cat, you can make a case for early speed and Lost Scroll from the farts. And we've seen a few of those in these mile races where the horse is out in post 12, 13, 11, kind of make that rush up to try to get over before they go into that first turn. So, I mean, I guess there are a few, and even the 13. God, there's 14 out
Yeah,
there.
14 big.
They just
big
keep
field.
showing up in this race. But I don't know. I just thought as a potential speed play, that one could be interesting. But I was liking a lot of the horses to the outside, even including the 14.
Yeah, well, I landed on the 6 in here, Rose Hay All Day, who I thought
Just
was
won.
Yeah, very impressive winner here last weekend, and that was actually the fastest mile of 4-mile races on Friday or Saturday. And I also thought she was capable of showing speed, so she got off to kind of a tardy start in that race, but and 2 back you have to just throw out, but 3 back in her debut she did show some good early zips, so I was banking on her kind of showing a little more interest in the race early.
Yeah, Mike Trambetta's got one in here I thought was a little interesting in the 7 horse. I thought you could make a ton of cases in this race. Midnight Crossing ran a very good late closing second last time out, the number 9 horse. Gets Michael Sanchez in here. I even...
What do you think about Midnight Crossing stretching back out to a mile? Because I kind of liked him at first, and then the more I looked at the distance races that he's run, I was like, well, maybe not.
Well, the mile race 3 back, he kind of, I don't want to say ran off, but he kind of did a totally new tactic, and once they came to him, he was spent and done, and he was 70-1 that day. So I don't know. I'm a little bit of a toss that one because it seemed like it was kind of it wasn't a suicide mission in terms of the fractions, but I think they were just trying something new and it didn't work. But
I started liking him, and then I just progressively, you could see I scratched it out of talking myself out of it.
Conquest Hard Cherry made another. We saw a lot of those recently in these mile races, and the 5.5 race for that matter. Horses coming from way in the clouds, down the outside, getting up for minor awards. And Conquest Hard Cherry made up a ton,
lots of ground,
and was really, really flying late.
Well, this is another one that I kind of talked myself into with the distance angle, thinking, well, if you close that much ground late in the game, 5.5, stretching back out to a mile, which he's done successfully in the past, maybe he's just a little bit more capable in there. And could you get a better price on him?
What about Merv as a big, goofy long shot? This 10-horse Alex Babe, because the last 2 have been pretty horrendous, and they've been at lower class levels, which is not a good sign. But if you go back before that, the races in Tampa weren't that bad.
Not bad.
Yeah, and I feel like from a speed figure standpoint would kind of put this horse right in the mix. Granted, it's a different surface. Granted, it was 5 or 6 months ago, but there's a reason.
But these are the kind of horses that have.
There's a reason it's going to be 40
or
or 50-1.
Yeah.
And so, I just thought that, and the horse hasn't run on turf, so maybe the horse can run on turf. And so I just thought at a really goofy price that one could be interesting. I think you make a case for the 12 Lost Scroll, who ran pretty well last time at Penn, was really in contention till the last couple of yards. The 13 Dilly Does It, I think is one of your selections, right?
Yeah, well, it gets back to non-winners of 2. Kind of ran out a little bit out of his conditions last time.
But was right in the race
3.
till mid-stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought there's a lot of horses that figure in here.
I have a little bit of a theory that sometimes in massive fields like this, 13s and 14s get forgotten about sometimes in the tote board. Like I feel like people get exhausted reading the PPs all the way that long because it's like by the time you're out here, you're like, God, who was down on the rail? Go yo woman. Who by the way I think is not the, like I said, there's a lot of ways you can go, but I do feel like sometimes these horses get forgotten about. Jamie Ness takes over for Kathleen O'Connell, who's a very good trainer, but I'm curious to see the prices on the 13 and 14 because, like I said, sometimes I feel like these horses get forgotten about.
Yeah, because I thought they were both interesting.
Yeah.
Both of those, but I do feel strongly about Rose Hay All Day. Right?
Okay.
I thought that was a really good spot play. So even though there's 14 horses and we've just made a case for over half of them, this might be a potential single for me, Rose Hay All Day in here.
Well, you got your picks in race 7?
I went 6, 5, 9.
8th race on the card, mile and 3/16, which we've had one of these this meet, and I think it's just so fun to mix in a longer race or a really, really short race, like a 5.5 like we have in the dirt on Thursday. I just love to have a little card diversity.
Yeah.
The 5 in a row at 5.5 the other night, it was like, man, same thing every time. So I love that this is kind of thrown in here. You made, I think, the biggest favorite of the meet in here, right?
I have, yeah. Well, I just thought that the 7 speed game looked awfully strong in here. Yeah. Awfully strong. He's only eligible for this because of a race he ran in last November. Second in a tough non-winners of 1 at Laurel last time, as he was the betting favorite in here. Mm-hmm. And those Maryland shippers have been consistently strong throughout the meet. So I've been saying, Florida shippers were hot last weekend, Churchill shippers the first weekend. Well, Maryland shippers have just been winning.
Yeah.
I just didn't find a lot to not like about speed game in here, and I thought it was a long way back to the horse I picked in second, which I couldn't believe was Tito Tonight.
So I kind of had the same experience. Like, we've kind of bashed the Tito Tonight race, right? TD Vance has been very hot since coming here. Maybe he got this horse, and the horse has just gotten better.
Or back to where he was.
Yeah,
if you look back far enough on his running line, he was actually running speed figures that are really competitive. He just went wrong for 3 or 4 races.
With speed game, what I'm interested in, so the Samuel Davis barn is 1 for 2 here, so he's winning 50% here, but he's only 3% for 2019. But this horse has been competing against very tough horses, and he fits here, and he was claimed from Jamie Ness way back when, but boy, for me, it's just tough to take such a short price on a barn that hasn't been winning all that much. I definitely thought Tito Tonight was interesting, which is just so funny because we've kind of been poo-pooing that race a little bit. I thought the 6 was maybe a little bit interesting too. It hasn't run on the turf in quite a while, but from 3 turf starts, 2 seconds and a third, and the speed figures are pretty solid, and seemed to kind of be, I don't want to say rounding into form, but was really out of form for a while. Went to Presque Isle and kind of woke up a little bit, but this is a big jump in class. I mean, this was kind of a, I think this one might even float up a little bit, but maybe you're right. Like, maybe there's just not any other alternatives to
that's I mean, I kind of backed. I know I made him an even money favorite, but I kind of backed into it.
Yeah,
thinking,
it wasn't like it jumped off the page like this horse just is so tough to win. It's maybe
there was just a lot of separation when I started looking for. I did make Charm Offensive the second choice on the line just because I thought that race last time was the most similar to any of the races these horses are coming out of.
Tough, Merv.
It was, but
is this a single for you though? If you're playing a late pick,
I think so. I think so. Not a separating single like Rose All Day, but just a mandatory single.
So the last, and your picks in the race 8?
7, that's it.
So, I love it. I'm a Brisnet player, and on Brisnet, this horse Taco, the number 3, is the biggest standout from a prime power perspective.
Well, yeah.
but if you looked at this horse's PPs, Merv, and you saw that you didn't look at the dates, you only looked at the PPs, this horse would be 1 to 1,000.
Well, yeah.
Broke the maiden at Gulfstream first out. Second time at Gulfstream, optional 35, wins by 7 1/4 on a grass. Like, when do you see grass routes win by 7 1/4? Wins an optional 50 at Fairgrounds. Goes over to Sam Houston, wins a stake over there. Goes to Santa Anita, the great race place, and runs a good second behind Conquest Fahrenheit. The only problem is that was March of 2017, and now, all these years later, is in for 5,000 here, showing a pretty fast workout last time.
Yeah.
It's a crazy situation because this horse, like I said, would be in this $5,000 non-winner of the year. If this horse had those PPs with no break, this horse would be 1 to 1,000. Maybe not 1 to 1,000, but would be a favorite.
Well, he may still be the favorite, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he could take money. My notes on this horse were just, I don't know, ... Because I don't know what to do. I don't think anybody.
And maybe
will
that's
know what to do.
paddock looking will help. Creaky Cricket was kind of made a pretty nice move into the race last time before fading, but was at this level and took some money, so figures to take some money again off what wasn't a terrible run.
No, I thought that race. I remember that race came really tough. That Zen's Land race, and we've seen some horses come out of. I think Dopo Lavoro ran well in his next start. So yeah, I thought in the absence of Taco being a big favorite, I thought that the 5 made the most sense of the horses that otherwise make sense.
The 7 makes sense from a class drop standpoint, speed figure standpoint, real low percentage barn. just 2% with shippers from 51 starts, 0 for 24 on the year, but is 33% in the money. So the horses have been running okay. But this horse has to take money just off the class and the speed figures, right?
Yeah, well, he also was on a 2-year layoff.
Yeah.
He's only raced 3 times since then, so and his speed figures are kind of rounding back into form, getting back to closer to where they were before that break. So I thought as he drops in class and his speed figures are getting better, it made a lot of sense in here.
Yeah, I kind of was liking the outside horse a little bit, who's dropping pretty significantly from 20 down. But the 1-2 starts back for 12.5 wasn't all that bad on the grass, and the 2 prior to that were dirt races, even though they were at the same 5-9 one of the year. But then you start going back a little further, and there's some decent grass races in there. And I just thought getting back to an appropriate level and surface could equal this one waking up. But it's also an 11-year-old, so do 11-year-olds wake up?
Well, he's been lightly raced, so maybe so.
Well, I mean, to me, he doesn't seem like one that doesn't want to run anymore. I mean, that 1-2 starts back was just a month ago, not even a month ago, and was at least prominent for a good chunk of the race against Open 12.5. So I just thought that now he's just back to the appropriate level.
Yeah, I did take a look at the 4 in here, dropping from the $10,000 level at Pimlico last time. It's been since May.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting layoff angles in this race, but I thought that one is another one that just kind of fits speed figure wise.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they won for 8,000, so they jumped up to a starter 8,000 and got bet that day, and didn't do much running, but was prominent early on. And this is one who could be part of the early mix, right?
Yeah, definitely. And another interesting one, if you look just way back in the line, where he was running in some salty races himself.
Yeah. Mind Your Biscuits shows up in his PPs. And one-liner, who was the Fletcher horse.
Yeah.
American Patriot shows up in his PPs.
Oscar nominated.
Camelot Kid. Yeah. Annals of Time.
Mm-hmm.
Lord. Not in that same company anymore, buddy.
It'll be an interesting race, this one.
Your picks for race 9, Merv?
I went 5, 7, and then Taco. I don't know. It's like I gotta include it.
I know that's a handicapper tout move. So that way, when he wins by 30, you can go, I did have him third.
Well, if I'm betting any verticals, I can't just throw him out, right?
Oh, you can, yeah. Well, I mean,
well, if I see him in the paddock,
yeah. Well, it's too late then. Yeah, I don't know. Like,
not for me.
It is a tough one. Like to me, it's just like I'd rather he could be a total free square, but I guess I'd just rather get beat by a horse like that because, I mean, they're putting him in for 5, right? Because they think that's where he can belong and win. I mean, and it's such a massive far cry from where he was at.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally from stakes competition at one of the top 2 circuits in the country.
Interesting. He's not gelded either. Like they could stand him somewhere too.
Oh, maybe we should claim him. Go and put him up at Washington. Get a little Wabred up there for Taco. And just think of all the fun names for Taco as an offspring. Carnitas. Here's Carnitas on the outside. Anyways, we're getting stupid, so we're gonna wrap up this edition of the program. Merv, thanks so much. We'll see you guys back here for Saturday.